Awesome. I'll do it.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to welcome all here and call the meeting to order. I'm going to do something a little different tonight for the mission statement. I always read an email from teachers or kids from the school, but I had a chance the other day to talk to a young man who's thinking about moving to the area, and he asked about our schools. And he said, tell me a little bit about your school. So I got a chance to brag about our school. And I just want people to remember that, you know, even in times when all you hear about is bad stuff, that there is really a lot of good things going on in our school. Kids can graduate from our school with 32 college credits. That's going into college as a sophomore with no cost to the parents. We are pioneering a C4K program for the rest of the state. Our FFA is the third largest in the state, and it's been the best in the state for 4 out of the last 5 or 6 years. Our biotech program, our aquaculture program, our industrial tech program, all of these programs are among the best in the state, in my opinion. And so, you know, we just need to remember that there are a lot of things good going on in East County also. So, thank you, and I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So done.
Second.
You got a so done and a second. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
All approved, or all opposed, say nay. Okay, John, you want to go over the consent items?
Yep, I do. We had 2 sets of minutes from January 20th, the work session, and then the regular meeting. And then the fund balances for January 31st. Any questions on the minutes or the financial statement? Okay, then on the first page of the bills, card member services, we had middle school special ed supplies, some fuel for a trip, and tech supplies for that $415. Down to Fort Dodge Community Schools, that was special education tuition for 1 semester. Marco,
How many students was that?
that's actually only 1 student
Student.
for 1 semester.
Sorry about that.
Marco copy supplies, $4,200. That's all been turned into our equipment breakdown insurance for reimbursement. So that ended up being a net zero for us. The next bill, Mason City Schools. Once again, that's student special ed tuition. Fonda Community Schools, $33,000, split almost 50-50 between our shared tag contract and open enrollment. And that would have been for the first semester open enrollment, so that's what that is. Region 12, you see that every month, hopefully that'll go away. The new bus. Next page, Star Energy Fuel. That's about $3,500 worth of LP and $5,700 worth of diesel. So that's all for our transportation fleet. The LP in that particular billing cycle is still at a less than $2, $1.80 or something. Phil called today, it's I think 2 1/4, he said, if we were to buy today. So it's at least back down where the new buses are, saving a little bit of money, but not anything like we thought, so. Card member services under the activity fund was for some PBIS supplies and prom supplies. Then down under the loss fund, the Star Energy again is payment for the LP fuel tank and the pump and compressor we bought to fill our own buses. In that was originally about a $22,000 bill. There was a $5,000 clean energy credit, and Star Energy did all the paperwork for us and took that right off the top. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, they kicked in another $1,000 rebate. So, yeah, it was almost, all said and done, it was about a third of it was free. So that was a good deal. And then just the nutrition fund bills. So, anybody have anything else that I didn't touch on?
You know, I don't have anything on the bills, but I do have a question, John, and you know, this may be something that you can't really answer, but it looks to me like our total bills have been declining a little bit. Does it seem that way to you, or is it just me that
No, I think
something
they
I'm
have.
not seeing?
When I did the December 31st review, for the first half of the year, expenses were down a little. Some have been transferred to the loss fund. I mean, you're seeing more expenses in lost than you would have seen a year ago or 18 months ago. But that's an effort to protect the general fund, so that's a good thing. And like this month, we have 122,000, but there's 33,000 in one building, Alfonda, and then a couple large tuition bills. So, seems like it's going in the right direction.
Anybody got any other questions?
The website development, is that
Oh.
something that will, 1,800, that's the one that we're, to
Yeah.
get us up and going?
Right, and you'll see, I think the contract was for 3,600, 1,800 up front, and 1,800 at the end. Currently, we're paying about that much every year for somebody to host our website, or even more,
Oh,
okay?
right.
So once we get this up and going, we'll host it on our own server. Maintenance fees will be basically zero. We do all that we can in-house. We may have to hire these people to clean it up for a couple $100 every once in a while,
Right.
but.
But
long-
basically, they're building us a new site for about
Brand
3,600.
new site for 3,600, and basically won't be any ongoing expense.
Are they gonna have somebody test it before they put it up?
Yeah, I don't know how many websites they do, but they're pretty well.
Right, sure. Yep.
Pretty comfortable with them. I only met with them once, but I know Robert and Beth met with them more than that. So. Anything else? I'd entertain a motion to approve the bill to Albright Oil for $21,7630.
Second.
Motion to second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 4-0. Then I'd entertain a motion to approve the remaining bills on account, financial statements, and both sets of minutes. Motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we'll move on to the education spotlight, and so now we're just gonna move right up to the industrial tech building.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a backdrop that, probably 2 months ago, with some Perkins funding as well as some funding from the SAVE and Hubble accounts, we purchased a 3D printer for the district. And the guys, the folks down in Industrial Tech have been working diligently and are already doing some amazing things. Biggest thing about the 3D printer, and they'll share a lot more information, is that prior to this, we have a pretty sophisticated CAD program that the kids use, and that's a great thing. This allows another step of learning to be added to it, to where they can make a prototype and do some just amazing things with this piece of technology. And so instead of bringing them up and just showing the board as well as the public what they have already done, we thought it would be better just to go down to where it is and let the kids talk to you about how the process works and demonstrate it. So we're going to all move down to the Industrial Tech Building.
You guys are welcome to come or stay.
Entirely up to you.
Well, Dr. Feeney asked me to kind of show off our new technology we use in the CAD room. If you kind of look around behind you, there's a few things that we printed off, but the basic gist of the 3D printer, it takes a model and then prints it in plastic. It's kind of deceiving when it says a 3D printer, you think paper right away, but it's an actual plastic. The plastic comes on rolls similar to these. One's a model roll, one's a supportive type material. And what we did was we printed off a couple things. Corey Carlisle designed a trumpet mouthpiece, and it actually works. We tried it. So it printed, the 3D printer, we did this before. We just started kind of playing with the color a little bit, so we have several different colors we can do. But as you can see, what it does is it lays down this supportive material and then it builds a model on top of it. So then this is all supportive material also. Then what we do is we take this and put it in the dunk tank over in the corner, and it's a soluble, so it eats it away. So then when it's all done, Mr. Robinson there. Grab one of those. So when we get done, it's all clear in the middle, okay, and then it took Corey, I believe, I don't know, 2 or 3 tries, 4 tries maybe, until it's perfect. I mean, Mr. Mailer used it, and he said really the only difference you can tell between the plastic is because one's plastic, one's metal. Is really the only difference in the tone that he could pick up. So Corey really took off and ran with it, which, you know, was exciting for the kids to kind of see that. Before we had the 3D printer, the CAD program's pulled up on a couple computers. We do use a 3D modeling, which is called SolidWorks, which is also a dual credit class through Iowa Central. Before we had the 3D printer, everything we did, we just printed off on paper, and the kids would hand it in to me. There's really no way to really test, did it work? Is it going to do what we wanted it to do or what they wanted it to do? So that's how much this has kind of improved the kids, the student achievement and the student learning, is be able to take this, put it in their hand, and they can use it. So, and then there's several over here. The other one, Cameron's kind of taken hold of. You guys know smartphones. The iPhone is kind of a big one. He made a cover. And what we started with, he did the first test piece, and then, you know, I would have said, you know, design something like this. He would have designed and printed it off. We would have really not known if it would have fit or not. So when he put it on there, I'll let you do that. He put it on and it moved a little bit. It didn't fit quite right. So we went back to the drawing board, and then he did test number 2. Drop there.
They're unbreakable. Right?
They are, yeah. You can drop it. You can bounce some of the balls. You can bounce them across the floor. So we did test number 2. It was still off a little bit, and then finally we got the last one, and then we put a little radar in there. So when he snaps that on, and then you kind of see the radar kind of in the background. So another thing the kids kind of took off with, and that's another one that we printed here, but you can kind of see the support material, how it has to kind of build all that up. So that's kind of the big overview of that. We do have it running, if anybody wants to see it, but if anybody wants to ask questions. I had a couple kids come in. These 3 are probably the ones that have taken off the most with the 3D printer. Some of our CAD classes, just from the time that we bought this in December, my numbers doubled. Just the kids that heard about it, came down and saw it. So the kids, I got a lot of kids kind of at the beginning stage of this. So, you guys want to add anything to that?
Any questions about the printer?
How common is it to have one in a high school?
In our area, Carroll High has one, and then there's some in the bigger schools. So we're very, very fortunate to be able to have that. Iowa Central's had one for a few years, so it's always kind of neat to take kids over to the competition. They can see it, and the prices come down quite a bit, so where it's a little bit more affordable. So, good question. Anything else?
Can you throw a piece in a scanner and have it replicate that without having to design it from scratch?
We can, but we do not have that type of scanner. But if you have the right kind of laser scanner, you can. You could actually take an image of me, put it in the software, save it as what they call an STL file, and then print it off. The guy that brought it here, he had just tons of samples and kind of showed me, and he had an actual person printed off, you know, about this big. So I've had a few other kids in Mr. Waggy's class. Mr. Waggy has a biology class. They have to create some kind of aquatic life structure. You know, most kids would probably go home, get an aquarium or something like that. Well, this student just didn't have those capabilities, so he asked me, he said, can I do it on SolidWorks and print it? And I said, as long as for a class, absolutely. So we printed a small tank, aquarium, and then he did the little, what you want to call it, seaweed, I don't know if it's seaweed, but whatever that would fit inside there, and he did a couple pebbles, then the lid, another C1. So then he turned that into Mr. Waggy for his project. So it was enabled that we were able to incorporate the software in his CAD class and also use it in his biology class. So
I'd love to hear from the 3 gentlemen. that
that's
are
why I
actually
asked them to come.
doing this. If you want to talk to us about what you're learning, what you're doing, what you like, what you don't like, whatever.
I was actually originally planning on going to architecture at ISU and then starting switching more into manufacturing or mechanical engineering. This has been a lot of fun. I know ISU has a 3D metal printer that can actually print aluminum, so I might go try and play with that when I go to ISU.
Coming to CAD's a lot of fun every day. You get to design your own stuff, and you get to actually make it come to life, and you get to see if it works, if it doesn't work, and then you can go back and kind of learn the designing process. Like, I have cars over there on the table. The first one, axles didn't turn. The second one worked, but the wheels were a little bit weak and got smashed and dropped. And then I made that third one, so it's a lot more structurally sound, I guess you would say. I don't know, it's kind of a cool experience to go through and design your own stuff and make it come to life. So.
What's typical time on that? Like when you guys set your mind to, well, you know what, I'm going to come up, I mean, how many classes does it usually take for you to come out with something?
I think I made that day.
My main project has been the phone cases, and to get the design finally right, it took me about 2 weeks. So,
When you say 2 weeks, how much class time in here? I mean,
I
That
have
can
my,
kind of vary because sometimes he's in here after class.
okay.
I have a 7th hour and then 8th hour 3 days a week. I have a study hall. Sometimes I stay after during my study halls.
I mainly joined because of the 3D printer. I heard about it, thought it was very cool, and kind of wanted to get into that. I've already done a little programming with computers and stuff and robotics and done some of the technology kind of stuff, and so I thought it'd be a cool thing to branch off with. And so far I've done a lot of tutorials, and it seems really cool. We did a coffee cup and a travel mug, and you can branch off and get your own ideas and do stuff, which is really cool. And then you can see your ideas actually print and use them and stuff, and so I always thought it was a very cool class. And actually can, you can use it later. I mean, a lot of jobs, would use it, and it can apply to your life in the future, so.
Okay, and one of the reasons that 3D printers were ever designed, if anybody has a background in manufacturing, this is some of the stuff Iowa Central sent over when we were kind of thinking about doing it. If you were going to make something like this, if you were just go from scratch, print this off in metal, have it all welded, and be a couple $100, and then all of a sudden find out it's not right. The holes aren't lined up right, the axle's not right. So what they designed these for was to develop prototypes. They print this off, it fits, all right, then they send this to the manufacturer and then he makes them. So that's one of the reasons this was kind of designed for business part of it, was for prototypes and kind of get, lower your cost of your production. So now it's been, been out there for a while. There's a lot of cool things that people have been doing. The trumpet mouthpiece, actually, I just found a blog today that a guy just started posting that, and it's like we're already kind of ahead of him. But so it's kind of fun. I showed the student that, he got kind of excited about it too. So
Tell them the story about the guy that figured out how to use one of these for the press.
Oh.
yeah, there's and these guys level. We're getting better at it. But there's a gentleman that had I believe his son, or it's kind of was on the Facebook and stuff. His son was born without a hand, and he was able to draw and design and then print it off on here and give the kid 5 fingers to use. We're not quite to that level yet, because there's a lot of different things we have to kind of work with, but eventually maybe we'll have a student that would be comfortable enough on the software that we would maybe be able to do that eventually. So the capabilities are really out there, and with these three, they'll tell you too, I give them the basics, and then I challenge them with different drawings or designs, and then they just kind of take off with it from there. So the other cool thing about this, no one's designed this or drawn this. This came as a sample, but one thing that's cool about this software, when you get good enough and get the tolerances right, it'll print this off, and then you put it in the dunk tank, let it soak, and all the support material get out, and then when you pull it back out, it actually moves. And we can eventually get all that far, but we've only been playing with it for a couple months. But so the capabilities are definitely there, and I think that's what these guys are definitely excited about. So
you can make the tools for auto mechanics then?
Well, Erwin actually printed off. They were kind of having some problems with organization, so he printed off some for his wrenches.
Cool.
He was making a drill bit just earlier today.
Kind of playing with stuff, but you have to understand you can't really torque real hard. But like Iowa Central, this was another one that was printed on there. They just put it in the dunk tank, all the support material goes away, and then all this would move. So just different kids at a college level, and this was all printed on there. And we do a similar design thing with, find the specs for a rim, make sure the tire fits on and stuff like that. We haven't printed any of this stuff off yet, but this one's from Iowa Central. So, but we have the capabilities of doing color. I think we have black, red, blue, yellow, green. But you got to pause it, change it out. I mean, it's a little bit of work, but you can kind of see some of the. We've done a little bit of red, a little bit of black. So, I don't know if you guys have anything else. Any other questions?
What do you got cooking in there?
Right now, we just showed a couple things we've already done. Within the software, there's things they call tutorials. Kind of gives the kids a way to use the different parts of the software. And then when they get done with them, that's why I've been trying to print them off. So when kids come in next semester, I can show them this is what you're going to design, this is what you're going to draw, this is what it looks like. So, but just some kind of inside that, when it's cooking, it's about 300 degrees Celsius. It's going to take, this is how big it comes on the roll. And then it, just like I said, it feeds through on one of these reels, and then it gets it down to about that thin when it lays it out. So it kind of stretches it and builds on it, works on it. So.
What's the life expectancy of a machine?
The gentleman said, let's hope longer than that. It's really, he said he's had some out there for 10, 12 years. And the only thing, once a year we have to replace the tips. They just kind of wear out a little bit, but those aren't bad at all. So, and the material, one of these I think is just a little over a cubic inch of this type material, and it's about $5. So,
Legally, are there any copyright things you gotta worry about?
we've kind of been out there. That's definitely I think something that we take into account because there's a site out there called Thingiverse. If you go there, everybody in the world designs something and they throw the prototype on there. You can pull it right off and print it off if you want. I have several kids that want to do that all the time, but we don't. So, you know, I said the reason we're in here is things that you design, things that you work on. So,
Is there a process for reclaiming stuff that you want to remelt down?
no, that's the only thing they haven't done yet is the support material. We got a whole tub there, and it just gets recycled. I mean, you throw it in the recycling, and then they take care of it. So.
For that next generation.
Yeah, I'm guessing the next one will probably be able to take that stuff and melt it down. So.
Other questions or comments? I just think this stuff's cool.
It's pretty amazing. I'm glad
Yeah.
that kids get a chance to.
We're getting to finish, I mean, and you all talked about the fact that you could do the drawings and stuff, but this really does allow you to take that next step of learning. And Mark, I heard you say that you did a couple and it didn't quite work, so then you went back and made adjustments. That's all part of the learning process, so I say amen.
And that's the total thing I'm always trying to tell them, you know, it's all about your design. If it doesn't work, you gotta go back and figure out why isn't going to work. What do you have to adjust? What do you have to change? I've had a couple students that graduated last year and the year before, and you know we were excited about it. And I told them we got one, and over Christmas break they were all in here wanting to look at it. So they were pretty excited too. They're at Iowa State in the manufacturing engineering fields. So.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, there's one there.
There's 2 ports in the bottom, each from a different reel.
I'm trying to figure out how that works. Oh, yeah. It's neat that it's not a billing thing.
So we'll move on to reports, the superintendent report, and we'll let Dr. Feeney follow that. Pretty neat presentation.
Yeah, I think we'll keep this real short and sweet. Just a couple of announcements, make sure the board and the public's aware. We've had some frozen sewer pipe issues at the Flex Ed Center, and so we've moved that over to the Rasmussen building in Sac City until we get a spring thaw. And as a board, we need to really start talking about, you know, a permanent solution to that problem. There's been discussion, you know, we've gone with right now 2 propane buses and then have 2 on order and then a minibus on order. Propane is shot up to about where diesel was, maybe a touch higher for a little bit, and now it's on its way back down. Our plan really has been that if the price of propane got higher than diesel, then we'd swap out and use a couple of the spares that we have in the interim. But at this point, I thought, John, I heard you say propane was down to 2 1/4 or something, which is still substantially cheaper than what the diesel costs are. In the coming weeks, we'll put together a joint marketing and branding committee, as you talked to me about, directed me back a couple months ago. We'll include some community people as well as board representatives and some teachers and school employees. School Improvement Advisory Committee, SIAC, is scheduled on Monday, April 14th. And then the only other thing I guess I'd share, we kind of talked a little about it during the bills a little bit, is that the district's website is undergoing a major overhaul, and it will look a lot different. We hope that to roll that out probably April. I think that's realistic, and I think the public will appreciate the changes, because right now the current website, there's great information there, but it's not, to me anyway, it's not as intuitive as what this one is and where stuff is. So you'll see some real great improvements. Yeah, that's all I got.
Kevin Bitterer had his report in here. If anybody's got any questions for him. And Mike gave us this report here, if anybody's got any questions for those guys. Kevin, do you have anything that you want to add, or unless anybody's got any questions?
Probably the one, number 6 at the bottom, with Sherry Vaughn. Met with her last week, and she represents the Iowa Workforce Development, and she is trying for the northwest sector of Iowa to create a connection between the high schools, the community colleges such as DMAC, Western Iowa Tech, Iowa Central Community College, as well as the labor force. And the statistics that we notice from the state of Iowa is there's a skilled labor shortage. Example, welders and stuff like that. And so there's a very vigorous attempt to fill that void. And part of it is to keep Northwest Iowa kids in Northwest Iowa. So working with Sherry Vaughn, it really starts with getting our kids tested and certified to find out what's their level of expertise. And eventually when they take this test, they'll take a test in 3 areas. One is applied math, one is locating information, another one is reasoning. And through that test then, they're going to be kind of scaled on from bronze to platinum. And then what happens is, as they go out to community colleges, for example, the example she gave me, let's say Bill Tice out at Tobacco was looking for welders. And he would have this pool of names that he would have available that he could call upon to get and fill some of those positions. And so what we're going to get this started, you have to develop, or you have to have people who can administer the test, and we want to be able to do it in-house. So the people that are going to be certified to give the test will be myself, Carrie Eichhorn, special ed teacher, Amanda Miller, guidance counselor, and Pam Russ, business teacher. And in order to get certified, you have to take the test. So we're going to be classified as bronze through platinum too, so we'll find out. But that is all confidential information, by the way.
Yeah,
I want that on record, that's confidential information. So, but anyway, by taking it, they want us to get a sense of what the test is about. And then we can begin to administer these tests. It's free. The state of Iowa is picking up the tab for it based on the needs that they see. So I got to give Sherry a call. We're trying to get her out next week so the 4 of us can take our tests. Each test, you can take it on a computer, which is about 55 minutes per test, or you can take it via paper pencil, which is 45 minutes per test. Then you get the results back, and then you begin to kind of start doing some of your labor courses. So we're one of many schools that are doing this. So it's exciting, and you know what? I think it's interesting to realize that how nice would it be for a potential employer to have this list of potential employees that they can call upon and have that pool of labor right there for us.
Are there particular businesses you guys have in mind? I mean, I know you mentioned Evapco, but have they found the program to be pretty?
Yes, she was just talking to John Deere. And John Deere said, we're very interested in this. They took it one step farther, is they are actually interested in if this student will go to school, we'll pick up the tab as long as they sign a contract to be with us for 2, 3, 4 years. So yeah, there seems like a growing momentum with businesses being very interested in this. Yeah, it is.
Thanks. Anybody got any questions? Any other questions?
I would for Mike. On that graph there, it shows the reading comparisons.
Yep.
On that bottom right-hand graph there, where it shows that we slipped down below 70%.
Yes.
It looks like we've slipped. Do you see, what are we doing to correct that?
Jay, we're meeting as an RTI team and looking at all of the data. I'll bring some math data back to you on next week or next month's report. But we are looking at that, and it's more of an instructional issue within the classroom, and we're working with classroom teachers and the RTI team to try and pull those scores back into a higher level by the end of the year. This basically is a snapshot of that time of the year, and it gives us some direction on where we should be going. Keep in mind, the Iowa assessment data is probably the lowest set bar of all the assessment data that we use. So we are looking into some of our district data from C4K and seeing some concerns there, and trying to work through that with our teams to try and move those scores in a different direction. There are definitely some pockets of scores that are challenging right now, and we're addressing them as a team and as a building, and sharing information, bringing in AEA people to try and help head us in a different direction.
Is this an early fall snapshot?
We're in the fall norming period of the Iowa assessment, so.
Mike, let me jump in too, because one of the things that when we get to the end of the meeting and we talk about tentative agenda items for next month, one of the things that I listed as a tentative agenda item was to have Pam, Rust, as well as the principals talk about this next month, so we'll have some more information. And just so you know, the high school and the elementary, they're in the fall norming period. The middle school has gone to the spring, so they haven't taken the test yet. So, but I don't see a reason why we wouldn't want to look at the data for elementary and high school next month and make it just an agenda item where we're prepared to talk about it.
Are these charts beneficial for you? I mean, it really gives you a snapshot of, the state level. We look at both buildings and our own AEA. They're really telling, and it's really easy to read, and that's what you like in data. I mean, you like to see it right away and say, okay, how can we make improvements? What can we do? As you read down through that, we had a lot of pockets of classrooms that were 100% proficient, and I don't know that I've ever seen that.
Yeah, we'll get deeper into it. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so we'll move on to unfinished business. Technology initiative, I believe that'd be you, Beth.
I am here as a representative of the 101 committee, and our proposal this evening for you to propose one computer for every student at the high school. And we'll give you all the information that we've kind of done, how we've come to our information and our decisions, and the biggest question to most people is costs. Here's our vision. Students of the 21st century growing up in a digital landscape that enables them to collaborate, communicate, and share information quickly and easily. These new skills allow students to become 21st century learners with the internet at their fingertips. The goal at ESC County is for students to become informed, responsible digital producers as well as consumers in an ever-changing global society with computers at the hands of each student. This is not one of our group, obviously, but this is a great quote that really states that we really can't wait a whole lot longer. It's 2014. Our schools should be relevant to the world in the way that equips our students to participate in the world. It should be the norm, and it will be eventually. I guess the challenge is that at the front end of this change, that we need to be on the front end of this change so we don't rob our current students of opportunities for their future. It's what's best for our students, and that's truly what we believe. That we really can't wait for a couple more years. We can't wait until we have more money saved. We can't wait that much longer. 3 of us have 5th graders, a 4th grader and a 6th grader. My kid saved up for her own iPad, and without help from me, she figured out how to connect with her little friends in other towns. They learned how they figure this stuff out on their own. They don't need us. They're moving forward without us anyway. So we've got to come where they already are. Integration of technology into the classroom also prepares students for the post-secondary institutions where laptops are required, assignments are submitted electronically, and learning opportunities are posted online. We already have high school students that are taking online classes, college classes. Some of those 32 credits are also credits that they don't get from face-to-face instruction in this building. And providing a laptop for that would probably be much more beneficial to the students. But our main goal is for the computers to become a tool for students to communicate, collaborate, and show their understanding by having 24/7 access to the internet. We do not want them to become a $1,000 spiral-bound notebook. We don't want them just to be something that they can do word processing, that they can just go surf the internet. It's a way that they need to be able to show their understanding in a better way that they can't normally in the classroom. They've got that internet access. They can go out and find information at their fingertips anytime they want. This is how we got here. Very quickly, I'm going to show you. This is a couple years old. It's a map of this, all the school districts in Iowa. About, 260 of them right now. About 50 to 60% of all the schools have already gone one-to-one in some form. All the red are Mac schools. This includes MacBook Pros, iPads, iPad Minis, some cases even the little iPods. We're talking Chromebooks, tablets of all different shapes and forms. If you don't know what a Chromebook is, and I'll talk about it in a second, this is a Chromebook. Okay? I paid about $180 for this one weekend. And normally about $300. It's a Google product. You turn it on, you log into your Google account, and within about 10 seconds you're on the internet. They're pretty sleek. They're made of plastic. There is no hard drive. There is no CD-ROM drive in there. There's very little memory. Basically, all it is a portal to the internet, into your Google account. For a lot of schools, this is a great money-saving effort to get the internet into the hands of a lot of kids. This was one of our 2 options that we decided we want to look at, Macs and Chromebooks. And I'll talk just a little bit about that. So when I reference a Chromebook, this is what I'm talking about. This is not totally updated. Carroll just last year went Chromebooks for 4th through 12th grades. Battle Creek out of Grove, OA, BCIG, went Chromebooks, I believe 712 or 512 last year, just this fall, excuse me. There's a bunch of different things that are coming out, but they're all going one-to-one with some kind of device. So how do we get to this point? About this time last year, Dr. Feeney and I sat down and decided it's time. We can't wait any longer. We've got to get moving on this. So we sent out an email for volunteers to form this committee. We've got representation from all the buildings except for Sac Elementary, but we do have the library media specialists and a couple of our members over here. We started meeting in the spring and decided, let's start doing some research. What are schools going with? What schools should we probably go and visit that have already done this before us, so we don't make the same mistakes that have been made before us. This fall, we broke into some groups, and we went to Council Bluffs, Spirit Lake, Van Meter. 3 or 4 people, we even took a couple students. We went to Council Bluffs because they had Chromebooks. If you didn't know, Council Bluffs has a huge Google farm down there, server farm. And when they first came about 3 years ago, they just donated something like 20,000 Chromebooks to the Council Bluffs School District. How nice. Then they were kind of one of the pilots, so we know that they had gone through a lot of this. Spirit Lake is at the end of their 4-year rotation with MacBooks, and so they're on their 2nd rotation. So we went up there knowing that they would be some good experts in Macs. Van Meter's Mac as well. They're also one of the front runners in doing some very innovative things in technology in general in their classrooms. Robert and I went over to OABCIG early this fall because we knew that tech coordinator was going through some of the very initial things that we would have been going through integrating the Chromebooks, and we wanted to get their take on it as well. And that's when I purchased one. I said, I got to get my hands on one. I need to know if this is a viable option for us or not. I didn't have to buy a Mac. I've always been a Mac user, so I knew what it could do and kind of knew the differences. In November, Scott McLeod came and talked to our tech committee and several others and some administrators. If you don't know Scott McLeod, he is Dr. Scott McLeod, and he is one of the educational technology experts in the state, in the country, and he goes internationally. We're lucky enough to have him as employed at AEAH, and so we get him kind of at our disposal when we need the help. We've asked him for a lot of references and resources and things like that. When he came, his biggest suggestion that I got out of it was buy the best technology you can for your students that you can afford, and get it at the end point of where your students are. So that's the high school, obviously. So we kind of took that to heart. Had another meeting in December, and I finally just came out and said, there's an elephant in the room. What device do we want to go with? It's going to dictate a lot of our professional development or decisions from here on out. Let's take a vote. And it was unanimous. We decided Macs. Macs were the best device for us to go to in terms of wear and tear, in terms of they just don't have problems with hardware and software. They all the programs integrate together, the iMovie, the iPhoto, the iTunes, they just work. You don't have problems like PCs. PCs were never one of our options. They're too glitchy, they take too long to load up. Majority of the schools in Iowa don't go PC. They just don't. One of the things we liked about it was that it just, you pop it up, you log on, and it's up and going. Same thing with the Chromebook, but the Chromebook, you don't have all the extra software. You don't have Microsoft Office, which is what Tammy uses with her comp classes. We teach classes with computer apps on Microsoft Office, Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. We needed to have some of that software at our disposal, and we couldn't even put that on a Chromebook. So it would change a lot of our curriculum. The winter of 2014, a couple weeks ago, Robert and I went to Carroll and Glenn Ralston. Our first initial reason was to go and talk to him about a student tech team, because we were going to start a student technology team to help us train teachers, to troubleshoot, things like that, and get the kids involved. They both have student tech teams. Carroll actually went Chromebooks this year, and Glidden just went one-to-one this fall with MacBook Pros, just like these. So we got to pick their brains on that stuff too, and what they've gone through. And on January 17th, then we had some AEA staff that came and talked in small groups with all our high school staff, in groups of like 2 or 4, and asked them, you know, what do you need to know to make this work? What are some of your concerns? What are you excited about? And we collected all that data, and we're going to address some of those things. And out of that, we came with about 3 different major themes that we've all addressed, or working on at least. So here's our plan. We hope to purchase all high school teachers new MacBook Pros this spring. They need to be comfortable with the technology before it ever gets in the hands of teachers. They need to know, this poor lady here has never been on a Mac before. And so we need to make sure that she is comfortable with it, that she knows what to do, that if a kid has a problem, she might be able to help them. She also needs to know, how can I integrate it in my classroom? Because that's the big thing right there. So we'll have training for all teachers on their laptops, the software, the classroom integration, as soon as we possibly can, and then probably some more in June. And then we also need to have some discussions with middle school staff about stuff in their building, and that's coming up as well. This summer, our plan is to insert wireless access points in every classroom in the middle school and high school. None of this is going to work if we don't have good, solid, reliable wireless access. And in order to do that, and many schools have said, you've got to do this, put one in every room. We'll put them in the gym, we'll put them in the lunchroom, we're going to put them everywhere that a kid will probably go with their laptop to do schoolwork. The other thing we'll do this summer is we'll take 6 or 7 of the mobile carts that we already have in this building, and we're going to move them up to the middle school. Clean them, make them re-image them so they look like new, and they will have enough computers up there that they will be able to be one-to-one with the PCs we have for next year. Then the plan is for next year.
But to clarify, when you say one-to-one, that's the ratio. We're not suggesting that it's going to be 24/7 access.
Right.
We haven't really addressed that at the middle school.
We really don't know yet, and that should be up to the teachers. There are lots of options. The 5th and 6th grade, maybe they'll have enough computers that they can, for their core classes, have a cart in every class that they may not carry them around. 7th and 8th graders, maybe they'll end up carrying them around, or maybe we'll allow them to take them home. Those are some suggestions, but the things that middle school teachers need to decide that. We need to have those conversations next year. So next fall, we have some computer informational meetings for the students and their parents, and explain the policies, procedures, insurance, what to do if it gets broken, what to do if my kid's on the inappropriate site, all that kind of stuff. Students need to know that, parents need to know that before they ever get in their hands, so everything's clear. And then we plan to have a really nice roll-out fun celebration where they come with their parents and sign the sheets. We've got lots of music, and they get this nice bright shiny computer, and we go from there. Also next fall then, we'll have to obviously provide continuing professional development. We cannot just put these in the hands of the teachers and say, go for it, and leave it at that. This has to be continual, whether it's once a month, once a quarter, once a semester. We need to continue this year after year so that the teachers keep up to date and fresh with all their new ideas and how they can integrate technology as well. And then this is the middle school, once again. If we move approximately 104 PCs, they will have enough computers that they have a kind of a modified one-to-one next year. So in the meantime, while they can do their planning, and then they need to decide what kind of devices potentially could they in 15, 16 roll out to their kids. They may decide that a Chromebook is a great alternative because if one breaks or if a fifth grader drops it down the stairs, we're not out a whole lot of money. So they may decide that's good. They may decide iPods or iPads or a tablet. So there's a lot of discussions that need to go on there as well.
Yeah. What would be the age of those 144 laptops from here to middle school?
Varying. Some of them.
2 to 4?
Yeah.
They would be pretty close.
The oldest ones are about 4, but they've been taken well care of. The newest ones, I think, are about 2, running on their 2nd year this year, actually. So they're still in pretty good shape. And we have enough that we would take the bad ones out and, just keep the good ones.
And if we talk to a school that for the middle schoolers to not be on MacBooks, obviously there's a huge price difference.
Yeah.
I understand that they're younger.
Yeah.
Is there any concern there for them moving? I mean, obviously the kids seem to figure things out really quick, so that must not be an issue.
Really, a lot of stuff they do is just internet-based anyway, and word-based. Kids
Until high
adapt.
school, is that what you're saying?
Kids adapt. So, if we did Chromebooks or PCs in the middle school and they come up here and they get Macs, they adapt better than we do.
Yeah.
They won't have a problem. I really don't. I'm not concerned about that at all.
But we have talked too, that depending on how we come in with budget and all of that, about the potential of putting a Mac lab for 8th grade use to help in that transition. We're not ready to make that as a recommendation, but we're on it.
Yeah, good thinking. And then a continual, constant conversation with the staff on what they think would be appropriate for kids at their level. And then we can't leave out the elementary. So we would continue, start some spring conversations this year about what would you like to see for elementary kids, and have that conversation next year about what could we possibly use, what are some options, what do you see in your best situation. So here's our projected costs. MacBook Pros cost about $999. They're pretty pricey. So that's the cost of 320 machines. Our projected enrollment this next year is 274 kids. And we've got about 27 teachers that would need laptops And then you always have 15, 20 or so left over. So if a kid drops it, you take it in, they get an extra, they have no downtime. The wireless access network, we know that it's going to be anywhere between 20 and 40,000 depending on what platform we decide, and we're still trying to decide. So that's kind of on the high end. Software, we know we're going to need the Office suite, the Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all that kind of stuff for Mac. The management part is so that we can manage 320 machines and not have to touch them all every single time we can push stuff out to them. There's no other way to do it. Parallels is a software that you can put on a Mac that you can also boot up to a Windows machine. And we have to have that because we have online or college level classes that are on specific pieces of software, and we don't want to give up those college credit classes. So the kid, when he has that class that semester, we put Parallels on the machine. When the semester's over, we take it off and we just shuffle it over to the next kid. So we figure about 20 licenses for that. Other various things, laptop bags, we'll provide a bag for every kid. Can't guarantee that every kid would buy their own or even buy a bag at all, so we will provide them. We know we'll need to get new textbooks for computer apps class, because right now we teach the Windows PC version, so we have to buy the MacBooks. Little projector adapters, teachers will all have to have one of these guys so that they can connect their Mac to the projector. And then the barcodes, little barcode labels, so that we can keep track to save property reset. So I got it under our $400,000 budget. Just barely.
Room to spare.
Yeah.
How many of those numbers on there are a one-time cost? Is that software going to be a one-time cost, or will we have to update that
No,
periodically?
that software is one time. Trying to think if there's anything on there that is reoccurring.
I mean, obviously, the MacBooks, we'll have to buy those at some point in time again.
Yeah.
Right.
4
So,
years, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
The software for the computer apps, is that a yearly license, or we purchase the software?
We buy it outright.
So that's a one-time cost as well?
That would be the 2011 version, and that's the newest version Mac has. They come out about every 5 years, so that'll last us for a
Shouldn't be
while.
any much for recurring costs.
No, not really. The only thing this doesn't cost is some sundry things like maybe new batteries and power cords for the machines going from here over there to last.
The PCs.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be huge. So when you're talking about buying this mini Macs, they have 3 different options on how to purchase them. The lease purchase option is like buying a house, basically, a $400,000 house. 95% of the schools choose this option. They take their payments and they spread them out over 3 or 4 years, so you're not paying in one lump sum. It varies. The interest is variable, and once you own it, then let's see, you would own a laptop at the end of the period, so it's like buying a car, you just spread it out. Okay. The second one is a fair market value option. It's like leasing a car. So we don't own anything at the end of the 4 years. We pay only 90% of the cost, but once the 4 years is over, you got to ship them back to Apple, and we have nothing to show for it. You send all the laptops back, and it's done. Or you can continue to lease the existing ones that we have at a lesser rate. You do that. Or they said we could also trade them back for fair market value, and you need to check that out. Okay, and then the third one is we can buy them outright. Personally, Macs have a quality life past 4 years. A 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old. We've got some Macs in Wall Lake that are 7, 8 years old, and they're still working just fine. Don't have any problems with it. We can easily use these laptops in other areas of the district if we choose. If we want to keep 40 of them and ship the rest of them back, we can do that too. We would own the laptops without any additional interest rates to the total.
That's going to add $15,000, $16,000 to the cost, the interest. So.
Yeah. And Apple has a free recycling program. So if we choose at the end, we just ship them back. You're not paying anything by the pound or whatever to recycle them, which is awesome. And we've used them several years in the past as well. So that's a nice additional price. We know we're going to have to up our bandwidth, which is our internet speed. Currently, both the high school and middle school have 25 megabytes. Just to give you an example, Glidden Ralston only has about 180 students in their K-12 maybe, and they were at 25, and they kind of ground to a halt, and they went up to 50 at Christmas, and they're going to go to 85 next year.
What's the price of that, or was that in the $20 to $40,000?
That's not in the first quote. Currently, we pay about $215 a month on this side of the district. The 85 megabytes would be about $915. The good part about that is that it's E-rated. E-rated is a big form that I fill out, and we get huge discounts based on our free reduced.
It's basically a federal government subsidy for this stuff.
Thank you, that, yes.
It's 85 and up.
Well, we have 7 mobile labs, 7 times 24 machines currently, and these and 2 more labs. 25 hasn't been a problem. We're going to aim for probably 50, and if it's not enough and we find out at the end of first quarter it's not enough, it's not a problem without it. Our problem is I shouldn't say a problem, we get our internet from the ICN on the north side and we get it from Cornville on the south side. So that's just not a one price, it's a double. You pay for both ends. So that's what we're looking at.
I should know probably a lot more of the answers to this, and this is probably going to kind of backtrack a little bit, but I'm still trying to understand how different things are in my kids' classroom from when I was in school, and the fact that there aren't a whole lot of textbooks used, and they have pamphlets like this printed out. So I'm still not quite sure how all of that has changed anyway, but what's this going to do for that? When you're talking 9th through 12th graders, is everything going to be done on that?
Many schools that go into one don't even install printers on students' machines. Everything is digital, it's all read.
It's all sent to their teacher.
It's all sent. We're looking at learning management systems right now. And basically, teachers can post assignments, YouTube videos, whatever they need on there. Students upload their assignments. They can check them on the system, put comments and everything, and send it back. And there's no paper involved. Awesome for when students are gone for FFA or speech or whatever, and they can say, hey, I'm in Indiana, but I can get wireless access. I've got my computer with me. I can still do my homework. I can still submit it by whatever time. That would be awesome.
I think realistically, anytime that there's something new, there's a wide continuum. Will someday we get to the point that we don't buy textbooks and everything is this? I hope so. Are we going to be there next year, Amanda? No. It's a work.
Take them all away and throw the computers out.
It's a work in progress.
There's a lot of change.
And what did you say again is we're expecting to, I don't know what you're thinking, option 1, 2, or 3. It sounds like maybe 3 because of the money we saved.
We'll let John talk about that.
Yeah. When are you expecting to have to buy them again?
We're thinking a 4-year rotation is normally what they did. Yeah, so the freshmen this year, well, the incoming freshmen will get them for the whole high school career. And then once the seniors graduate, then those will go down to the freshmen. Because they've already had kids ask us, so when I graduate, do I get to buy it and take it with me? I said, sorry, only if you're on the year 4. And then maybe you'll get to buy it at that point.
Good recycle program for us too.
Yeah, true. I mean, if kids have it for 4 years and all their stuff's on it,
Yeah.
they might want to buy it.
But otherwise that, you're talking potentially would go down to middle schoolers. Is that what you're saying?
No, like when the seniors graduate, then those machines will be cleaned off and sent to the next freshman.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the,
We're anticipating this purchase taking us through the next 4 years in this building. I mean, we'll have to add, we get enrollment, et cetera, but it really is a 4-year plan.
Well, but I think what Amanda's asking, what happens after 4 years, what happens at the 5th year?
Do we buy new ones,
Do they
or
move down
do-
to the middle school? Do they?
That's kind of where Spirit Lake is right now. When we visited, they're in that, what do we do now? They've actually decided to go Chromebooks next year. And their staff's not happy about it.
well, because to me, if you're saying that we have some that are working great at 7 years old, why aren't we going to use those and just constantly do that?
I think
They can
the
filter down.
answer is that when we get to year 3, then we start formulating those options at that point. This group will be for the high school for 4 years, to be determined whether we're going to sell them or cycle them, or we don't know.
Well, you can't sell them if you buy them through company. You can sell them if you lease them, I think. There's a rule on that.
You're probably right.
If you lease them, that's okay. But if you buy them outright, you can't sell them. So that's something to look into.
Yeah, we will, thank you.
Well, yeah, if you lease them, you can ship them.
But, How long will the PCs that we're thinking about throwing down into the middle school, how long will they last? Couple years?
We're hoping just a 1 year,
One
and I
year?
hope I'm back here this time next year with a new proposal for the middle school.
Okay.
This is a kind of just a temporary measure, so they can start, teachers can start teaching differently, kids can start using them, and they'll have something, but it's not the perfect answer. But we figured why not use what we have while they're making those decisions.
But during your presentation, I think you said, McLeod said, get the best technology to the kids closest to graduation. Why wouldn't we want to move the ones we got for next year down and buy new for the high school kids?
Every year.
Well, I mean, that's going to be the best technology.
Well, part of it is that at the end of the summer then, we'll clean them up, but the kid's gonna get that same machine back every year. So we wanna keep those machines out here.
I think he's talking about when the seniors moved up. Is that
Oh,
what
I
you're
see,
saying?
and buy new
Then
ones every
move-
year.
I mean, that certainly could be an option, Jason. Now, one that I haven't been part of the discussion on that, but it's a cool idea to explore.
I mean, that makes sense to me, because then the kids that closest to graduation have the newest technology. And Lord knows, even in my business, if I get a computer today, tomorrow it's outdated.
Oh, yeah, it's like your car.
Yep.
The only thing to consider with that is if you're buying new computers every year, you could have a different vintage of computer, eventually in 4 years. Like a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, they could have different software on it, and eventually then you could have kids that have different stuff on their computers because they're constantly coming out with new operating systems, new
I was gonna
whatever.
say the new software, I mean, that would have to be purchased too, probably every year if we went.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, but it's an idea to put on the table.
It is,
We don't have to make
yeah.
that decision right now. It's a nifty idea to consider things.
Yeah.
What is our graduating class this year? How many?
Which one's down about third?
Senior class.
Senior class next year, goes down to, what's the senior class go down to, 70, 60 something?
The junior class this year
Yeah,
is
senior
like
class.
75, and this year's senior class is 93.
I guess I'd like to applaud the work of the Beth and the steering committee. They were, again, volunteers that took it and ran with learning more about this. Thank you. John, I don't know if I can your answer or your recommendation.
Well, we've said all along that, we've been budgeting 400,000. I think this month's balance was almost 1.3 for the fund that these will come out of.
Yeah, and we should talk about that too. It's not gonna come out of the general fund, it's gonna come out of the PEPAL and save accounts, because, we talk all the time about trying to save money in the general fund, and so people wonder why we're gonna spend $400,000. Well, it's gonna be out of the PEPAL and save accounts.
Which can't be used for salaries and all of that stuff legally. It has to be used for transportation, technology, et cetera, et cetera. So there will be some basic, we're going to use a little bit more energy because we have more computers. That will be a general fund thing. It will be minimal. But for the most part, everything that was presented tonight, for the most part, is all out of double and save. And that's exactly the type of use that should be happening with that account. It's not general fund money.
I think it's a good thing, and, I think we should, personally, I think we should approve this recommendation. I don't know, John, do you want to look into purchasing or leasing and see what Brent was talking about? Or do we want to just, personally, I think we should buy them. It's.
I hate paying interest.
It's
What'd you say?
$18,000 worth of interest that we have to pay.
For me, it's not the interest that bugs me, it's the fact that most of our double loss fund accounts, once we spend the money, it's gone. And so every month when we get the new account, we've already spent it, it's gone. You start leasing it or buying it over 4 years, today we buy them and you think it's done, that the cost is out of there, but it's not. It's another $100,000 next year, another $100,000. I just assume pay for them because then the accounts are real the next time you see them. And you know what you are operating on. I'm a little, not worried because I voted for it, but I still think of the buses that way. This lease down thing is new. Almost everything on Sackboard, we always just bought it, paid for it. And so I'm worried about that a little bit, because I know that this amount we have in the bank is what we have, but we already spent something, not just regular expenses we know are gonna come, but things like that.
Some of
There's
it's
other needs.
encumbered.
Yeah, exactly. So I just assume, buy them if we're gonna buy them. I don't know whether I wanna make I don't know if I wanna talk about tonight, exactly what we voted on tonight. I'd like to have another month, think about it, that's me.
You'd like to wait to make this decision on last night?
Yeah, just to make sure everybody else is on board with, if we should buy them, lease them, whatever, things like that, I guess.
Certainly an option. Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure.
But the downside of that is that as soon as this is, assuming it is approved, as soon as it's approved, the order for the teachers will go in as fast as we can type up the PO, so that we can get that out here, those out here as quickly as possible to start working with our teachers. And is a month the end of the world? No, it's not, but it's a month that we won't get back. That's where I come from.
I never voted on 400,000. That's fine.
I understand.
Can we vote on purchasing the computers for the teachers with the idea that we can get the rest of them the following month? I mean, would that help, Brett?
We need to go into the teacher's hands first, right? I mean, that's, we really want to get them familiar with it. How long does it take to get them here? I mean, because we're not going to put them in the kids' hands anyway.
Until fall.
Right, right. That really is the biggest issue. So that certainly, and I don't think we get a price break, is there? I mean, price is what it is. So there's real, I'm thinking out loud. There really isn't a downside to granting permission to get what we need for the staff and get moving and then come back.
Under 30.
Under 30.
You're talking
For just
30.
that.
30.
Yeah. That's a really good compromise, actually, if that makes everybody feel good about that.
Does that make you guys, I mean, is that workable? Like, this?
I do have some reservations, the same as Brett does. I mean, not knowing where everything's headed right now.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that it's 400, I mean, we know it's going to cost what it's going to cost, it's not that, it's just the,
So the real reservation is how are we going to pay for it, or you have
A little bit
reservations
of that,
about
I'm just
doing
thinking
this?
that through. I mean, that was my biggest deal. I'm not against the idea, I know it's coming, and that's fine. It's just, might be some more questions than I come up with tonight,
Yes,
yes.
I understand.
But getting it in the teacher's hands as fast as possible, that's great. As far as the $20,000 to $40,000 to get all the, what was it, the wireless access, spend the 40 and get as much bandwidth as you can, because that's what Brother Lance says you gotta do. If you're gonna have them in their hands, you gotta work, so.
I had mentioned last month that we were kind of anxious to get started on that project of installing those. Since then, E-rate's come out with a letter that access points may be E-rate eligible. There may be some extra money out there. So Beth has started that paperwork. We have to a 28-day waiting period here, so we're not gonna move on that before next month anyhow. So that part of it, while we were anxious a month ago, it's kind of been slowed down by the.
That's where we can't buy them and be reimbursed if it's E-rateable. We have to wait to buy them until that's
Yeah,
approved,
we have
if
to
it's
go through
approved.
the 28.
That's a long run.
So
That seems like a great compromise, actually.
then we need a motion to purchase that. I'll make the motion that we purchase enough computers for the high school staff.
Should we put a number on it? Should we say 30?
20? I'm kidding.
Whatever, yeah, 30, whatever, as long as 30, well, 30
well,
covered.
30 do it.
We should say high school staff.
Say something so I can.
High school staff.
Sorry.
Second.
Sorry. Okay, we got a motion and a second to buy enough computers for the high school staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0. Okay, move on to discuss and/or approve membership of Rural School Advocates of Iowa. Talked about this at the last meeting. And, you know, I don't really have any concerns, too much concerns with being a member. The concern that I would have is how much time is it gonna take you away from our district? And I don't know that, we haven't talked about that.
Most everything. Well, keep in mind, when I took that position, there were 3 options, a 3-year, a 2-year, and a 1-year. And I said, the only way I'll do this is a 1-year commitment, so my commitment's done actually in June. And I'm not planning to, re-up necessarily. And right now, most of what we've had is we've tried to combine any face-to-face meetings with other meetings that we're already at. Do have one next Monday that's in Des Moines, so I would be going out of the district for half a day. But for the most part, we're trying to do that or electronic. So I have no problem. I'm getting old enough. I have no problem saying no. I can't do that.
Have the numbers been run for what we would potentially, with all the funds pulled together, what we'd be able to pay a lobbyist to do this?
Depends on membership, and it really does. And it just depends. Right now, I think there's about 6 schools that have joined, and there's a whole lot of other ones having the same discussions with this board is. It really got going kind of late in the game for this year. But
Talking about, the way you described it here, really, if we start it and we stick with the others that we kind of have and the people that we use, revisiting it and seeing what we really need once we've had experience with all of them.
I think that would be wise. I guess the thing that keeps resonating in my head, I guess, is that there's the School Board Association that's supposed to represent everyone. There's an organization, UEA, and I believe Urban Education Network. It's designed for the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 large school districts. And that's what they do, is they lobby the bejeebies out of the legislature for issues that are unique to urban schools. When you think about it, there's a bit of difference between an East Sac County and an Urbandale and what our needs are. Transportation is a great illustration. Our transportation costs would be substantially higher per student than what it would be in an urban school. And so one of the emphasis of this year, using transportation as an example, is trying to get the legislature to recognize that if we're spending more money on transportation than other districts, the same amount of money is coming from the state to each district, our kids are getting cheated for the teaching and learning process. And there's really no way around that. And so that's what this group is really trying to address. I will shut up.
That makes sense. That we finally have somebody that's kind of going about how that.
That does make a lot of sense, and that's one of the reasons why I like it.
$1,000 less.
Yes. And that's for this year and next year, since it's so late, it's 18 months.
I say we go ahead and do it just to see what happens out of it. If they listen to one thing and we get, I can't imagine we can get $1,000 back somehow, some way directly.
Yeah.
So you get to bring us those reports, right?
I can do that.
Tell us what we're getting for our.
So yeah, we need a motion and a second to approve that.
I'll move to become a member of Rural School Advocates Alliance.
So we got a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Carries 5-0. Do we have any resignations or contracts?
No new business first.
Yeah, no new business, right?
And then resignations, yes.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Julie House as girls JVR softball coach.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and thank you, Julie, for serving as the softball coach for, doesn't say how many years, but
3 years.
3, I think.
thank you. I know that's not an easy job.
I make the motion, we accept the resignation.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to accept Julie's resignation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
You do.
We have 2 contracts.
Yeah.
Chris Bass, varsity softball, $3,011. And Jacob Ricky, JV baseball, $1,369.
We didn't include anything about the two of them in your packets because Chris has been a longtime assistant softball coach in the program, and Jacob was a coach last year. So we saved some paper. Go ahead.
Move to approve those contracts.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve Chris Bass as the head varsity softball coach and Jacob Ricky as the assistant baseball coach. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0. Okay, we're gonna discuss future dates, future agenda items and set the dates. Does Monday the 17th work for everybody? Check. Works for me. We've got plenty on that agenda that do we want to talk about buildings again? Or do we want to wait?
I'd probably wait.
Yeah.
Because we'll have a public hearing.
Yeah, we've got
like planned for the calendar, and you need to set, a public hearing for the calendar. What time you want that? Do you want that at 6 o'clock when the regular meeting normally starts? Do you want it at 5:30? All assuming we're ready to make a recommendation on that.
I
Wanting the
prefer to go
public
6
hearing when?
o'clock. I mean, we start
Then
getting
just
into
roll it.
into March. I'll start getting real busy out of work.
That's fine.
A public hearing, we're running that when? The same-
You do it just
before
usually
the-
just before the board meeting. It's a separate time for people to talk about.
Any of the calendar.
It's a requirement that you have to have before you
Right.
set the calendar, so.
Well, we did have a public hearing back in November, just because at that point we thought we were having to deal with an innovative calendar, but we need to have another one that's legitimate about this calendar.
And to be clear, it'll be for everybody to,
Right.
Could-
So you want that at 6 o'clock?
the public hearing at 6?
Yeah.
Meeting to follow
Yeah.
on the 17th.
What is the exact date?
To be determined.
Agenda items.
That's the next one down the list, whoever asks.
So before we determine where that's going to be, do you think that we'll have enough on our plate that night? I was going to ask, going back to our last meeting, about school tours. Lord knows we've met at the Sac Elementary a lot, but I physically, and I'm in there a lot, but physically to be taken through to see how many empty classrooms and stuff I think would be great, but maybe next month isn't the time to do that. Maybe prefer it to be, so that we can see the empty classrooms, because that goes back to the discussion of
Right.
What we're gonna do with
We
buildings.
can do it whenever, Amanda. It's gonna be a pretty full agenda as
that's
is.
what I figured.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty full, and as far as the location goes, I personally think it should be here at the high school because it's centrally located. Because I know there are people who want to discuss this from both
All
the
around.
north and the south, right?
Yeah.
So, that's my personal feeling, I don't know.
I'm
you
fine
guys
with
think.
that.
Fine. Fine with that too.
So we got the public hearing at 6 o'clock with the meeting to follow on Monday, March 17th in the high school library. Just want to make sure I wrote it down right. Okay.
We have the calendar, one-to-one initiative. We take a minute and do a first look at the proposed budget for next year. We'll approve that in April, hopefully, but if we have,
should do that. You want to have it as an agenda item?
I think so.
First.
just to get some of it in front of everybody, and,
Fair enough.
because then in April, we'll have a similar situation, we'll have a budget hearing prior to the meeting and approve.
The other things that I had suggested to you that would be natural is setting up a timeline for my evaluation. We should get at that. And if March is too busy, we can do it in April, but I would think we would want to go through and get that scheduled as we need to. Then we'll probably have some other stuff as things unfold.
I wonder if, I hate to do this because it's a really important part of our school board meeting, but I wonder if we should take the education spotlight off of there. We've got an awful lot to do in the next meeting.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy one. We can do that. Okay, thank you.
That's it. Move adjourned.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.